So I was originally planning to make this video like 3 weeks ago, straight after the Direct, and talk about all my takeaways from just the Switch 2 Direct on April 2nd. But throughout the weeks following the Direct, so much has happened, so much new information was revealed, and a massive issue almost ruined the Switch 2's important pre-launch phase. All of these things happened one after the other, and the list of things I could talk about in this video has been growing practically every single day. But now, finally, the period of chaos surrounding the Switch 2 Direct has kinda come to an end, now that Nintendo have said everything that there is to say, and that pre-orders are available in practically every region Nintendo operates in. All that's left for us really is just to wait until June 5th. I know, there's literally the entire month of May between now and then, but the amount of info we have now about the console and the games literally opens the floodgates for just how much content we can make. So, to fill the hype cycle, I'll be doing deep dives on Nintendo Switch 2 and its games. Welcome back to the Nintendo chat room, where today I'll be discussing everything we've seen from the Switch 2 so far. I'll talk about each thing in order of when they appeared in the Nintendo Direct. I might not be exactly in the right order, but at least roughly. I'm also actually working on a Mario Kart World deep dive, which will hopefully come out sometime next week. I'll actually be uploading deep dives on specific Nintendo Switch 2 games and features every week during the rest of April and the rest of May. Now, why don't we get started with this week's deep dive? The first thing we were shown in the Direct was the Mario Kart World trailer. As I already mentioned, I am actually making a video focused just on this game where I'll analyze everything we know about it, every single detail. So for this video, I'll specifically talk about just the trailer itself. And that trailer genuinely may have been the greatest reveal of a video game ever. I'm not actually joking. Every second of this trailer seemed to give us something new that blew our minds and kept us at the edge of our seats. 1 second, they're showing grinding, the next second, they're showing off wall jumping, and the next second, the literal cow from Moo Moo Meadows was racing on a motorbike. Even the title drop revealed something that blew us away. The fact that it's an open world Mario Kart, genuinely no one saw this coming. Even after all the controversy following the Direct revolving around this game and in particular its price, it's still undeniable that there was no better way Nintendo could have made an initial reveal for a game that is literally their most popular game and has been hugely anticipated for 11 years. Nintendo showed off what the C button can actually do. Game chat, which is pretty much Nintendo Discord. It's a really cool feature though, because now you can voice chat your friends on the console instead of having to have another device next to you that has either WhatsApp or Discord. It's easily accessible via the C button, and you can even share your screen so your friends can see what you're playing. Well, at 10 frames per second, but hey, that's at least 8 more frames than Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Then, they show off the Switch 2 camera, which you can use for video chat and new camera features in some games, which we'll get to when we talk about Jamboree. But why does it cost $50? I wouldn't know.
Tell them to bring me my money.
But it's a nice accessory to get if you've got the money for it. There's also a Piranha Plant camera that is cheaper than the regular Switch 2 camera, and it looks really cool. But don't buy it. It's only 480p.
What?
You'd be paying only slightly less than you would for the regular 1080p camera for a camera with quality that would have been the standard in 2007. Overall, I think considering all of the features it provides, Game Chat is a very cool new feature. I have mixed feelings about it being a Switch Online exclusive offer though. I mean, why do you have to have a paid online membership to use a physical button that came as part of the console that you already paid for? But again, I see Game Chat as a nice extra feature that doesn't define the console itself. Another nice extra feature is Game Share, which is basically DS Download Play brought back. I'm honestly really happy that DS Download Play is back, and I hope it gets more games get it as the Switch 2 life cycle goes on. So those are the two new game features with the Switch 2. What actually does partly define a console is its hardware, which is exactly what Nintendo show off next. The console is bigger, supports 1080p, and up to 120, yes, 120 frames per second in handheld mode, which is absolutely insane. But if you want to play with better visuals rather than performance, the Switch 2 supports 4K 60fps in dock mode. The dock also has a fan so it doesn't heat up too much when it's in dock mode. The console has a variable refresh rate, which hypothetically means that games that can only run at up to 30 FPS or 60 FPS, as well as games that can run at higher than 60 but not quite 120, won't hypothetically drain battery by actively trying to run at a higher refresh rate when they can't, like on the Switch. Speaking of battery, it was later revealed that the Switch 2's battery life isn't much of an upgrade from the original, but I'm not too bothered by that. Because not only does the variable refresh rate save much more battery, but also because you can now charge this console with the top USB-C port while in tabletop mode. As for specs, the Switch 2 is roughly comparable to a PS4 Pro and actually slightly better than an Xbox Series S. And it's been confirmed that it does support DLSS and ray tracing. The Switch 2 is now the only console that you can play games running at PS4 Pro quality while on a plane. That is just crazy. It's just crazy to be saying PS4 Pro level of quality and Nintendo in the same sentence. It's gonna take a long time to get used to that. There's two things, however, that people have been concerned about when it comes to the Switch 2. One of them is that the screen is an LCD and not an OLED, when actually, the HDR support on the Switch 2 not only makes this new LCD screen 10 times better than the original Switch LCD, but also, thanks to several creators who went to the Switch 2 event and put the Switch 2 screen side by side with an OLED, we know that the LCD display of the Switch 2 actually looks better than the display of an OLED Switch thanks to HDR. But to be honest, I'm pretty sure that an OLED Switch 2 is coming anyway in like a few years, so if you think it's worth the wait, you can wait a few years for it to come out. The other major concern I've seen is about the Joy-Con and the fact that it's been confirmed that the joysticks don't have Hall effect. And I get it. I've had a long history with Joy-Con drift as well, constantly having to get my Joy-Cons fixed and constantly having to calibrate my Joy-Cons every time I play a game. With that said, you have to bear in mind that the reason why the joysticks on the Joy-Cons drifted on Switch 1 was because of the weakness of the actual components of the original Joy-Cons themselves. The Switch 2 Joy-Cons are bigger, which means the components won't be as compact, and I doubt they'll be using the exact same components as they did for the joysticks, or at least I really hope not. Plus, let's be honest here, if the new joysticks had Hall effect, the console might have actually just costed 600 instead of 500. On the topic of Joy-Con 2s, they're much bigger and easier to hold. The shoulder buttons are no longer tiny. They're also made of metal, which is how the Joy-Cons attach to the console magnetically, and thanks to the IR sensors on the sides, Switch 2 Joy-Cons can be used as computer mice. This will work so well for games like Civ 7, as well as other PC games that end up releasing on the system later in the lifecycle. Nintendo also released a game called Drag and Drive, which is basically like wheelchair basketball kind of game, where you use the mouse controls, but I'm not sure I'll be playing that. The Pro Controller looks similar to the Switch 1 Pro Controller, which isn't an issue because the Switch 1 controller was great, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This time, they've added a C button and a headphone jack. That's right, a headphone jack on a controller. Take note, Apple. Apparently, the new Pro Controller also charges twice as fast as the old one. In general, everything about the Switch 2 is a direct improvement from the original, with new features of its own, like mouse mode. Next, after showing off the console, Nintendo show us their brand new Game of the Year candidate, the greatest game they have ever come up with, and one that is absolutely worth each and every penny, just kidding. They showed off Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. Basically an interactive instruction manual made for someone who has never held a controller in their hands. You walk around a Switch 2, learn some stuff, complete some quizzes, and play some silly little mini games. This would all be fine and everything if it was a free game that came with the console. But it would obviously be, wouldn't it? But guess what? It's not. You have to pay for it.
You serious?
Nintendo, you are the same company that bundled Wii Sports, a game with much more dynamic than this tech demo, with the Wii for free. You did the same thing with the Wii U with Nintendo Land. No one is going to spend any real money on this game. Well, can I even call this a game? I don't know, but this is probably the only thing from the Direct that I downright didn't like.
I just can't do it. I can't.
After that stinker of a game, they show off the Switch 2 editions of Jamboree, both Zelda Wilds games, Kirby Forgotten Land, Metroid Prime 4, and Legends EA. Some of these upgrades, like Jamboree, contain DLC and added content, while others, like the Zelda games, have huge upgrades in graphics. Personally, if the upgrade pack isn't too expensive, I will definitely be upgrading at least one of the Zelda games, probably Tears of the Kingdom, and I think I'll be definitely upgrading Mario Party Jamboree because I play that a lot. However, I'm only upgrading Jamboree because of the mouse control and voice recognition minigames, because I'm personally not really a fan of the camera integration in this game. I mean, it's just so bizarre looking, and I'd rather kind of just play as one of the characters, but I guess Nintendo always has that one gimmick, and this time it's the camera gimmick, so fair enough. For games like Legends EA though, which don't come out until later on, if, like me, you pre-ordered the Switch 2, or if you're planning to get one this year, then don't bother buying the Switch 1 version if you're going to play it on the Switch 2 anyway. Nintendo later announced that some Switch games will actually get free upgrades for Switch 2, like 3D World Splatter's Fury and Scarlet and Violet, which was really necessary. I was just so glad to hear this, because I think that it would have been kind of ridiculous to have to pay for every single Switch game to run better. Nintendo went on to announce all the third-party titles coming to the console. Some of the highlights were Cyberpunk, Deltarune, Elden Ring, A New Hyrule Warriors, Split Fiction, Silksong, which was in the sizzle reel for some reason, and surprisingly, a new From Software game exclusive to Switch 2, The Duskbloods. Yeah, this third-party section may have been a bit too long for my liking, but it's really good to see so much third-party support on Switch 2. With 5 minutes left to go, Nintendo revealed their last two games. The first was Kirby Air Riders, and I have to admit, I initially thought it was Smash Bros, but Air Riders is cool. Definitely not what I was expecting though. I was almost 100% sure that the final game shown here would be 3D Mario, but I was wrong, and to be honest, I'm not upset about it at all. Donkey Kong Bonanza looks amazing. I was one of the few people who thought Donkey Kong's new look was better than the old one since the January teaser, and after seeing his look in this game, I have no doubt in my mind. He's so much more expressive and vibrant here, and his animations are really good as well. As for the game itself, it looks like Donkey Kong Odyssey. You can tell it was probably made by the same team, and that team has never made a game that isn't amazing, so I'm sure we're in for another 3D platforming adventure that is as great as all the other ones they've made. Mario Kart World is obviously the highlight for the Direct for me on my list, but Bonanza definitely has to be second here. So now let's quickly skim through some of the events that happened after the Direct. So obviously there was the pre-order cancellation in the US. During the tree houses, there was the whole drop the price. Things didn't start out well for Nintendo, but I think that now that pre-orders have opened everywhere, I think they're gonna get back on. I think they're gonna get back to it. They're gonna get back to hyping up the system and not getting any controversy. I really do wish that maybe they decreased the prices, but I guess it is what it is. So that's pretty much the Switch 2, that is that. I hope you enjoyed my rant about Switch 2. If you did, please consider subscribing for frequent uploads on all things Nintendo. See you guys in the next video.